I would say, how have you used your personal identity to connect with people in a generative way that doesn't feel alienating?
Yeah. Well, I could say out here in our rural area, we're surrounded by neocons and conservative farmers who are still in the chemical industrial complex of farming. Um, we are seen as very odd. We are called girls. The we girls, in fact, WI, they pronounce it we. And part of it is, how do I show what parts of who I am depending on the project? All right. And, to a certain extent, the identity farmer, all right, it carries some credibility, but also when I can show them how to do things or go out in the field and we spend 3 hours in the sun. There's a way in which you become part of what they're doing, and as they're doing, learning, or improving those skills, it just takes fire out. That's all I can say. It's sort of as if, I mean, kind of the John Dewey notion of doing as learning, and in activism, doing things together, right, seems to show that we can work together. Which identities then you reveal becomes complicated, right? I mean, obviously, I'm an old woman, so elder woman. That's a real disadvantage out here. That I'm a queer woman is a real disadvantage out of here, right? So how do I move in ways that show the humanity of myself and reach towards the inner core humanity of these very different people out here, whom I really love them. I mean, I think they're different, and we can joke about some things. I mean, some jokes I have to walk away from and say, I'm not in that joke, right? But the people that we work with, we have a wide diversity of people who come out here, across cultures, across race, and largely a kind of white clientele out here, mostly working class though. And so just kind of move through it and navigate those spaces to be effective, right? Not to be closeted, but to be effective. And really, I think when people develop a capacity, something really wonderful happens. And maybe it's as simple as knowing how to use the vacuum seeder, right, in seeding a tray. That's a really remarkable little machine, and it speeds up the work, you know. So little things like that. And then there's a sense of accomplishment, and then camaraderie. And then all of a sudden we're talking about organic farming. And all of a sudden we're talking about the industrial, chemical, pharmaceutical, global food system, right? So from the minuscule moments of touching seeds and soil, a whole raft of things can emerge in a way that's gentle, right? That's pulling, that's convincing, that's persuading, that's moving. I love the work. I love it. So
Jackie's describing a lot of WI's work kind of out in the farm area, which to me, some of that is a little bit like coming home. I mean, I might have been one of those odd people when I was growing up. In fact, I was a religious minority growing up in I was an Irish Catholic in an extremely anti-Catholic community, and learned about that kind of discrimination and bias very early. And actually it served me well in my legislative career to be always clear about the need for the separation between church and state. If it was too confusing for me, I had a mother who said to me, when the little kids would say, "We can't play with you because you're Catholic," just said, feel sorry for those kids. They have parents who are telling them this, and they're ignorant, and you just need to make friends and figure out how to maybe make some new friends and figure out how to do your best. And I actually told that story in the legislature a couple times, once in 1993 when we were trying to add the word sexual orientation to the Human Rights Act, and again in 2013, 20 years later, when we were trying to pass the Marriage Equality Act. Just that kind of ability to make a distinction between people's biases and what their common interest might be, and how to move past that. I do think your question is important because to me, any change that I've been involved in helping create is because of relationships, my relationships with the people that I'm with, whether it's changing their heart or mind. And I came to believe over a period of those 38 years that those folks who may be an enemy today, or at least be in that role in terms of an issue, can, for the most part, there's a few exceptions, but can, for the most part, go through a process of having their hearts and minds changed. And I can go through a process of my own heart and mind changing about certain things. And so it happens, I think, because again of the relationships, of being willing to stand on the same ground and fight for some of the same fights. My basis was urban, inner city, East Phillips. I represented 4 inner city neighborhoods, and it was just such an honor to be part of the growth of that community. It was, we were fighting for real basic things like affordable housing, decent jobs, clean air that we could breathe and not get sick from. And that part is, I think, when we're talking about the environmental justice overview that WI works on, and that I understand is part of what you're interested in working on too, is, it's a common ground, and it doesn't take very long to discover the connections that people have with their environment when you start, talking with them about, maybe what they're experiencing health-wise, or what they're eating, or fears that people have. So I'm trying to get around to kind of answering your question, I guess, by saying that I think, the relationships part is really important. And I did have a very wise elder legislator say to me one day when I had lost a very painful battle around civil rights issues. I was really upset, really mad, really hurt that I wasn't able to get the votes, just a couple of votes short of passing a law. And he said, he saw my upsetness and pain, and he came over and he said, "Karen, remember this, the person who's working against you is your enemy today. Tomorrow may be the ally who gives you the vote you need. So don't burn your bridges. Take a few days, cool off, do whatever you need to do, maybe a few months, but don't burn that bridge to that relationship." And that was really important advice. And I tried to pass it on to my colleagues, younger colleagues, as I was leaving too, because if you don't believe that people's hearts and minds can change, it's very hard to do this work. But if you believe it's possible, it helps. It's not magic. It doesn't. There are folks who are not good people who we have to oppose. But on the other hand, I guess I choose to believe more the other side of that, which is we can find our common ground and often make change together in the area of justice is what I'm talking about. Many parts of the justice realm.
That's really great advice. And I think I relate to what both of you are saying, at how you have to connect with people as people, because at the end of the day, everyone's human. And sometimes I have to remind myself, it's just a job. Everyone doesn't have the privilege to have their jobs reflect their values. And I really try to hold on to that sentiment and really abide by the principle of diversity. We always talk about diversity, representation. Well, it has to include diversity of thought, not just skin deep diversity. So even if it's really uncomfortable to reconcile that you have to be friends with people you don't agree with, that's something that everyone needs, whether you're on the right or left or whatever spectrum you occupy. I think that's something that's really hard, especially now with mass media and the rapidity of how information spreads. So